welcome to the Radiant Presence podcast. This is your host, Pooja. Once upon a time, there lived a wise old teacher who was known for her wisdom and understanding of life. This teacher, however, was quite a recluse. She lived like a hermit on top of a mountain and was not easy to reach or find. But one day, an ambitious young man made the journey all the way up to the mountain. He sought her out, he found her, and knocked on her door. And when she opened, he excitedly asked her, he said, "I finally found you. Will you please teach me the meaning of life? I want to live a successful, happy, and peaceful life. Will you show me the way?" So the teacher didn't answer directly, but she invited him into the kitchen and she placed a cup in front of him and started pouring some tea into it. And this cup started to fill and she continued to pour until the tea started spilling over onto the table. So this young man became very alarmed and he said, "What are you doing? Can't you see that the cup is already full?" So she stopped and smiled and replied, "Exactly. Just like this cup, your mind is full of your own ideas. And to learn something new, you must first empty your cup." This is a simple story, but it captures the essence of what I want to share with you today. The concept of beginner's mind. Shunryo Suzuki is a famous teacher of Zen Buddhism, and he said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." When we embrace beginner's mind, we start to approach life with a quality of openness, curiosity, wonder, imagination, a willingness to see things with fresh eyes like a child. It is our capacity, our commitment in some ways to empty ourselves of any assumption, judgment, preconceived notion about a thing, a person, a situation, and to create something to enter, some space for new ideas, for creativity and wonder to step in. Let me share a very personal story with you. When I worked in tech, I had a job as a product manager, and I received feedback twice on that job that I wasn't truly listening. And if I'm being very honest with you, the first time around, I didn't even listen to this feedback. I was so convinced. I was so full of my own ideas about the direction and the vision for the product and the team that I couldn't receive or take in what was being told to me. And eventually I did listen, but it meant I had to stop and do a reality check of where my mind was at, how much of an expert trap I had fallen into. And I had to become present to what was unfolding in front of me, what was being asked of me. I'm going to invite you to ask yourself, where in your own life have you fallen into the expert trap? We can become experts without even realizing it. We might have an actual expertise, for example, that thing we do, that thing we went to school for and are trained in and get compensated for. We might feel like we have become experts and we know everything there is to know about the people in our lives, our child, our partner, our best friend. We might feel like we know who they are, who they're going to be the next day and the day after that, and what they like and what they don't like. We might become an expert at a subject matter that we have studied extensively, that we are very passionate about. We might be an expert at a musical instrument. The more we cling to what we think we know. The more our head is full of knowledge about that thing, that person, the less room we have for something new to enter, for something else to become possible, for our imagination to bloom, for some growth to occur, and for a connection to become deeper and more meaningful. And beginner's mind invites us to set aside this attitude of I know and step into life, whether it's a conversation or a project or a situation or just our morning, to step into everything with a sense of curiosity and wonder and childlike openness. Let's try a little exercise. I'm guessing that around you, you have a cup or a mug or a tumbler, whether you are driving or you're at home. Can you see something like that? What in our expert's mind, what we would call a holder of tea or coffee, or maybe if we stretch our imagination, we would say it could hold soup or it could hold ice cream. I'd love for you to bring that to mind. If you can't see it, bring it to mind. See this thing. We won't even call it a cup or a mug or a tumbler. We will call it a thing. Let go of any idea of what purpose it serves. And as you look at it, become a child that is seeing this for the first time, exploring it for the first time. And with this beginner's mind, ask yourself, what is this? What could it do? What is its purpose? The curiosity of a child. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no judgment. There is no good, bad way of approaching this. Just what is it? I do this exercise when I do trainings on beginner's mind at companies. And it is truly such a joy for me to witness these adults, mostly serious adults with lots of stresses and things on their mind and places they have to be, and something emerges in them, from them, that is so beautiful and childlike and playful. They could answer in any way, right? So this thing becomes planter or a holder of pens and pencils. It can hold sunshine. It can be a container for small treasures. It has suddenly so many new uses, so many creative ideas come forth, pouring from these people. It's important for us to connect repeatedly with this sense of possibilities because the truth is, we live in a world of endless possibilities when we open ourselves to wonder. So, I'll share with you an equation that I have in cultivating beginner's mind because it is nice and dandy to say, okay, I'm going to start being curious going forward, but it is also a muscle that needs flexing. And the more we flex it, the easier it becomes to move through the world with beginner's mind. The equation is curiosity equals courage and compassion. It takes great courage to ask questions that are quote unquote outside the norm, that are outside the box, and that might be perceived as stupid even by our own self. We have to embrace courage and non judgment when we are approaching situations and people with beginner's mind. I'll give you another example. As a young manager, one time we had a meeting with our project manager to discuss the scope of an upcoming project. And everything had been laid out properly in these printouts. with bullet points, and everybody's role and the entire timeline had been very clearly laid out. And at some point, I could not move forward to the next step because there was something in there that I just knew I needed clarification on, but it sounded like a really stupid, nonsensical thing. I did not want to ask a stupid question, but I did. I raised my hand and I said, could we have some clarification on this? And the moment I asked, I felt the entire room, we were sitting around a table, breathed a sigh of relief. I felt their shoulders relax. It was almost as if everybody wanted to ask and nobody wanted to appear stupid. So here's my first invitation for you is don't be afraid of your own judgment and the judgment of others if you want to embrace beginner's mind. It is highly valuable as a marker for success, but it requires us to step out of our comfort zone. The other part of the equation is compassion. So curiosity requires both courage and compassion. We must have compassion for our own self. When we say something, present something, propose something that just does not feel comfortable to us, and it might not even land well, but we want to have compassion for ourselves. We also want to have compassion for others around us when they do things like this, because we want to be surrounded by people like us who are curious and have a growth mindset and, who encourage us and inspire us to expand into our fullest potential. So having compassion for ourselves and others as we move through the world, not even jumping to conclusions or judgments or assumptions. When we are on the street, for example, and someone cuts us off when we're driving, our immediate reaction, which is the mind of an expert, would be to assume that this is a jerk, that they are inconsiderate, they're reckless. But in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, right? So what else could be possible here? Can we take a moment to pause and wonder what might be happening to them, for them? Maybe they're rushing someone to the ER, or maybe they're heading to an important interview. When we replace our assumptions with curiosity, with compassion, with non-judgment, we start to shift our perspective, and then something opens, and there is space for understanding, for growth, for connection. So I'm going to share with you some reflective questions. I'll also post these in the show notes for you to reference. But I love having some questions to reflect on as you embark on this journey of embracing beginner's mind. The first question is, what can I discover about fill in the blank? This person, this situation, myself, this day, this project, if I let go of judgment? What can I discover about fill in the blank if I let go of judgment? The second question is, what becomes possible when I remind myself that I don't need all the answers? Beginner's mind is always exploring and is never fully attached to an outcome or a solution. And when we let go of where this has to go, then we are presented with many possibilities. So what becomes possible when I remind myself that I don't need all the answers? And a third question is, instead of asking, what do I want? When we approach a situation or a conversation, what do I want out of this? Try asking, what wants to happen here? What wants to unfold and happen here? And then again, we are open to all kinds of possibilities, to creativity, to collaboration, to a deeper understanding. These prompts can help us navigate life, challenges, relationships, opportunities with a true sense of openness, creativity, and curiosity. I live in a beautiful neighborhood that is graced with the most exquisite, gigantic live oaks. I'm surrounded by beautiful lakes. And every day I step out for a walk. And on the first day of this year, I was out on my walk. And after I finished, I sat on a bench by the lake to take a mindful pause. And the sun was setting, and it poured golden light over everything it touched. I noticed a red lighter, probably discarded from the celebrations the previous night, amongst the bed of wildflowers around me. Two squirrels were chattering and aggressively chasing each other around a tree. Were they fighting or flirting? I don't know. I don't speak squirrel. And on the branches of this tree, there was Spanish moss hanging like strands of wispy spun light. It was catching the sun's rays, was swaying in the breeze. I walk here every single day, but somehow it felt like I hadn't seen any of this before. Because I hadn't. So as you move through your day and year, I invite you to consider what might shift and open up if you approached life with curiosity, wonder, openness, beginner's mind. I will post a guided meditation on how we can embrace beginner's mind in our day-to-day life. And I will share it as a separate podcast episode so you can access the meditation directly. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Happy New Year. Happy Now Here. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, to rate or review it. And if you can think of one person who would also enjoy it as much as you do, please feel free to share it with them. Until next time, here is to your radiant presence.